Coming up, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff fired, LA Mayor Karen Bass fires fire chief, and Trump sells the Nancy Pelosi Building in San Francisco. Donald Trump has fired the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General C.Q. Brown.
Overnight, President Trump firing the nation's top military leadership in an unprecedented purge. Trump ousting General C.Q. Brown as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, removing the four-star fighter pilot as America's top military leader, and firing multiple other senior leaders, including Lisa Franchetti, the first woman to serve as the Navy's top admiral, the number 2 ranking general in the Air Force, and 3 other senior officers. Brown was nominated by Trump in his first term, which made him the first black chief of staff for the Air Force, but has come under fire as Trump aims to rid the military of leaders who support diversity and equity, as Brown and some of the others who were fired had done. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth once called Brown a DEI hire.
Well, first of all, you got to fire you got to fire the chairman of Joint Chiefs.
Brown telling our chief global affairs correspondent Martha Raddatz last year he wants to be judged by his abilities.
I want to be judged based on my own accomplishments, based on my merits, and given an opportunity. That's all I've asked for throughout my, growing up. That's what I've asked for throughout my Air Force career.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth made clear that he wanted to fire Brown as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Hegseth and Trump are focused on getting the military back to its raison d'etre, which is warfighting. Brown claims that all he wanted was to be judged based on his own merits and given an opportunity, and that is all that he asked for. But is that true? We will have a look at some of the things he has said in the past to see what the totality of his motivations are. First, we look at a question asked during his confirmation hearings.
There have been 8,500 military men and women fired because they chose not to get a vaccine. If confirmed, what would you do to go out, not just they can reapply and there's a process, to go out and recruit these folks back? What would you do to do that? What would you do to accomplish that?
Senator, if confirmed, I'd provide them the opportunity to reapply.
I just don't think that's good enough. I heard that from Secretary Austin.
The question put was entirely reasonable, given the incredibly authoritarian policies pushed by the Biden government during COVID. During COVID, any serving member who refused to take a vaccine was summarily fired. Now, Biden later on did not want to admit the obvious after the event, that the treatment that those service members got was abhorrent. They should have been instantly taken back into service with full rank benefits and back pay. But Biden was vindictive, and so in a fit of pique, despite the evidence that the policy that he applied was unjustified, he wanted service members to reapply for their positions. During the confirmation hearings for Brown, as you can hear, he similarly wanted service members to reapply for their positions. If you enjoy this content, please like, share and subscribe. Then we hear from Brown shortly after George Floyd was killed.
I'm thinking about how full I am with emotion, not just for George Floyd, but the many African Americans that have suffered the same fate as George Floyd. I'm thinking about protests in my country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, the equality expressed in our Declaration of Independence and the Constitution that I've sworn my adult life to support and defend. I'm thinking about a history of racial issues and my own experiences that didn't always sing of liberty and equality. I'm thinking about living in 2 worlds, each with their own perspective and view.
Here, you start getting the idea that Brown is racist. And by racist, I mean supporting any policy, action or behaviour on the basis of race. It is also clear that he has a deep-seated resentment. This is very similar to what you hear from the Obamas. You have these people who have lived incredibly privileged lives, but they still feel hard done by society. Living in two worlds and how he suffered? Give me a break. This guy entered the service in the 1980s, when the genuine racist policies that had been in place up until the 1960s had been removed. He clearly wasn't disadvantaged. Look at the heights he rose to. I cannot understand this level of resentment which oozes out of him. Look at the body language, the twisting of the mouth. Brown isn't just angry, he is furious, despite all of the advantages he has received in life. He continues.
I'm thinking about my mentors and how rarely I had a mentor that looked like me. I'm thinking about the sound advice that has led to my success, and even so, most of my mentors could not relate to my experience as an African American. I'm thinking about the pressure I felt to perform error-free, especially for supervisors I perceived had expected less from me as an African American. I'm thinking about having to represent by working twice as hard to prove their expectations and perceptions of African Americans were invalid. I'm thinking about the airmen that have lived through similar experiences and feelings as mine, or who were either consciously or unconsciously unfairly treated. Conversely, I'm thinking about the airmen who don't have a life similar to mine and don't have to navigate through two worlds.
With Brown, everything is about identity politics. Once again, the resentment and victim mentality shines through. Having a mentor that looks like you. How racist. You shouldn't care whether they are male or female or whatever race they are. It is what sort of person they are as individuals, their ethics, their morals, and most particularly in this case, their capability. Instead, his focus is on whether his mentor looked like him. Perhaps he should have gone back and seen what real challenges Black Americans faced. He could have tried for the red tails and seen the level of discrimination that they faced. General, you can choose to see yourself as a victim all of your life, or simply enjoy all that life has given you. I know which I think is healthier. Brown goes on.
I want the wisdom and knowledge to lead, participate in, and listen to necessary conversations on racism, diversity, and inclusion. I want the wisdom and knowledge to lead those willing to take committed and sustained action to make our Air Force better. That's what I'm thinking about.
And here we have the nub of it. It is all DEI, all about race, among other things. Where he should be focused on building up the most lethal fighting force possible, he is focused on what colour skin, etc. people in the forces have. Let's see how much he is focused on race during his confirmation in the Senate as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Sort of race-based politics being interjected into our military. How did you come up with the percentage of 67.5% of the officers should be white? And how did you come up with 13% should be black? And how did you come up with 10% should be Asian? And how did you come up with 1.5% should be American Indian and Native Alaskan? How did you come up with 1% being Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander? And how did you come up with 15% of our officers should be Hispanic or Latino?
Senator, that is based on that memo is on application goals, not the actual makeup of the force. And those numbers are based on the demographics of the nation.
Okay, well, all right. There's 10% of our country is Asian American. So is that where you came up with it? Just a percentage of the population?
Essentially.
Because right now the actual percentage, I mean, this is where this is a ridiculous conversation, to be perfectly honest. Because why didn't you come up with, or are you going to come up with the percentage of the overall force? Did you contemplate that? Of how many, Black Americans should be in the Air Force? Or how many Asian Americans should be in the Air Force? Did you contemplate the total force percentages?
Senator, what we looked at was the aspect of providing opportunities for anybody who wants to serve this.
Listen, if that were the case, if that were what was in this memo, I wouldn't be asking you these questions. But we have in a memo signed by you that you think right now there are too many white officers. And this is a blanket statement. And so I could go down the line of questioning of which of the 5,400 white officers that we have too many should be fired.
Senator Schmidt is exactly correct. This is a stupid focus for a general who should be focused on the lethality of the US military. Instead, he is fixated on a military which has percentages of different race and ethnic groups down to individual percentage points rather than getting the best people for the job regardless of race. The fact is, the military in wartime is the most competitive environment known. Would you rather have the best person that could be found by your side in combat or someone with the right political skin colour? Look at the NFL and the NBA. They're also highly competitive environments where the best athletes are chosen. No focus there on the fact that blacks vastly outnumber whites, so more whites should be selected to make up the number regardless of skill level? How much more important is the professional sport ethos when selecting people for what can in many cases result in life or death? Way too much race fixation. We have Defence Secretary Hegseth on Brown.
Well, first of all, you got to fire, you got to fire the chairman of Joint Chiefs, and you got to fire this. I mean, obviously, you're going to bring in a new Secretary of Defense, but any general that was involved, general, admiral, whatever that was involved in any of the DEI woke shit, it's got to go. Either you're in for war fighting, and that's it, and that's the only litmus test we care about.
Hegseth is exactly correct about getting rid of DEI-focused senior officers. Warfighting and developing military lethality are jobs 1 to 10 and beyond in the military. We have seen from Brown's own statements the corrosive value of DEI identity politics focus. The world is getting more dangerous, and more lethality for the US military has to be the priority. This is not an organisation about social sciences. Then we have Representative McLean asking Brown questions.
Appreciate that. And one of the things it talks about in one of your slides is not to recognize people as moms and dads. I mean, as a mother, I take a little bit of offense to that. It also talks about not using the word terrorist. Can you explain why we wouldn't use the word terrorist and mom and dad? I think you got to get that message out, because I think a lot of people are really frustrated and they feel like we're polarizing as opposed to coming together.
What I would tell you is that what I perceive is we're misreading some of the aspects of the things we're trying to do as we move the Air Force forward, and then we look at how we build cohesive teams. And so part of the building the cohesive teams is getting to know our airmen. And
gentleman's time's expired. Our general lady.
Seriously, here we have Brown on cohesive teams. So according to him, unit cohesion is based not on being able to call someone a mother or father, or the ludicrous situation of the US military of all groups in society not being able to talk about terrorists. Yes, in my mind at least, Brown fully deserved getting fired. He may have been a good fighter pilot, but he did not have the required focus to make the US Defence Force the most lethal force possible. A lot of the issues he pursued would have resulted in a less lethal force. Then we have discussion about Trump and Maine Governor Janet Mills' clash.
To me, it's laughable that we have the President of the United States acting like a bully, threatening an elected official, a governor from Maine, calling her out, and hey, it's a woman standing up to this guy, kudos to her. Brett, to your point, this is not an issue where what she is speaking about is popular within Maine or across the board. But then again, it's not the most important issue. It's not even top 10 amongst the people of Maine.
Leslie Marshall, a Democrat strategist who goes on about supposed bullying of Mills. But even she admits that the issue of boys competing against girls is not a top 10 issue for the people of Maine. So why does the governor want to fight this in court? Just more lawfare from a desperate Democrat party? Perhaps Mills should focus on issues that do affect her voters, rather than blowing her taxpayers' hard-earned money on an ill-advised legal fight that she will ultimately lose. Or is it that she is a lawyer by background, so wants to extend professional courtesy to lawyers in making sure that some of her legal friends get nice big fat paychecks? Then we have LA Mayor Karen Bass.
Acting in the best interest of Los Angeles public safety and for the operations of the Los Angeles Fire Department, I just met with Chief Crowley and removed her as fire chief. I have appointed a 41-year veteran of the fire department, former Chief Deputy Ronald Villanueva, as interim fire chief. He is respected and ready to hit the ground running. So let me be clear. Our firefighters acted heroically during the Palisades fire, and they act heroically every single day. That is without question. Bringing new leadership to the fire department is what they and the people of Los Angeles deserve.
Bass has fired LA Fire Chief Crowley. Bass says she is acting in the best interests of LA and the LA Fire Department. She is lying. She's covering her ass and furious because Crowley pointed to Bass's shortcoming during the LA fires. Bass is a person who is conducting an inquiry on her actions headed by herself. Meanwhile, as you can see, Bass is not supported by the United Firefighters of LA, who state that Crowley has their respect and wasn't afraid to tell the truth and that she is being scapegoated. Then we have the Democrats carrying on over one of the USA's most important buildings.
White House is looking to sell the Nancy Pelosi Federal Building on 7th Street and the century-old building at 50 United Nations Plaza. The Trump administration says it will save money by avoiding maintenance on the buildings, selling the properties, then leasing office space for federal workers. Former Congresswoman Jackie Spears says it's just about vengeance.
It's another example of how he's coming after Democrats, he's coming after California, and it's all about payback.
Sorry, I was kidding. They're carrying on about the sale of the building named after Nancy Pelosi particularly. So Trump is coming for Democrats in California and it's all payback. Seriously, is this all they have? Couldn't possibly be about saving money, could it? So if it's all about revenge and payback, why is another building also being sold? Now, what do you think about General Brown's firing? Was it deserved or not? Please let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching.